You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
Shay Dixon joins us every Tuesday here at 4 o'clock. He's good enough to do that now. Of course, On3, the Bengal Tiger, on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Shay, appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. We're just trying to keep it on the tracks here so Scone has something to come back to, a show to come back to tomorrow. We haven't burned anything down yet, so we're doing okay in that regard. So I wanted to get a few thoughts on recruiting and then a few thoughts on spring, because they open spring practice a week from today, and that's obviously when recruiting will pick back up. But first, the news that Hayes Fawcett had it on 3 over the weekend about Jacoby Matthews wanting to enter the transfer portal in the spring window. Obviously, everyone knows that battle came down to LSU and A&M, and that figures that LSU will be one of the first to reach out there, I would imagine.
Well, it's kind of an odd thing. Everyone's going in real time with what the NCAA is enforcing and what the SEC is. And with the NCAA allowing anytime transfers, 2-time transfers, almost just kind of putting their hands up after going through everything over the past couple of years, the SEC has stood firm on this. You can't transfer within the conference after February, meaning you would have to do it in the first portal window. And there wasn't much buzz around Jacoby Matthews in the first portal window. Then it seemed kind of, at least the reports out of College Station, were that he and the Elko side didn't see eye to eye, or necessarily that staff or how things are rolling there. They weren't on the same page, and he'll head elsewhere, but not to an SEC school. So I think a lot of people are curious where a former, top 2 or 3 prospect in Louisiana just a couple of years ago is going to end up, but it won't be at LSU or any other SEC school.
Shay, why is the SEC holding so steadfast on that? I mean, do you have any? I mean, that doesn't. Why just after the in that spring window? That doesn't make. I mean, if it's fine and before then, why is it not fine after February?
Right. I'm curious if that's one of the things that doesn't change to where they pushed back until, you have until after February, or that second portal window, like you said, which would be in late April, I guess it is, a 14-day window after everybody around the country's done with spring ball. But this spring, they're rolling through with it. So, as I said, I bet by this time next year, we have some more clarity there in terms of guys knowing, hey, no matter what, they're not changing this rule. I've got to go in the first portal window, or if you can't feel it out in the second one. And look, teams like Bama right now would certainly wish that there's a second portal window, because they got rated in the first one. And in a time period where it was pretty much after the window had closed, most of the top prospects had already picked schools, and they were kind of left last one standing. And now you go to a portal window in the spring that they can't get any SEC players from.
All right, moving on from that and looking towards the class of 2025, obviously, which LSU number 1 in the country right now. On 3, y'all just redid y'all's rankings. Any big movers, standouts there in LSU's class?
Yeah, I think the biggest news is obviously the news that stayed pretty much the same. The number 1 overall player remains Bryce Underwood, LSU's quarterback commitment out of Michigan. That makes him the number 1 quarterback as well. Number 3 overall prospect remained Jacorian Moore, who stayed put as the number 1 receiver coming out of Duncanville, committed to LSU. And then a third top 10 prospect, Harlan Berry from here in Louisiana, the nation's number 1 running back, and the first number 1 running back in Louisiana. I believe Gunnery didn't finish number 1. He was number 1 at one point, but Fournette about a decade ago would have been the first. So since now, Harlan Berry, who will be a senior in the fall. So 3 guys in the top 10 who are all 5 stars in the On3 industry rankings, all number 1 at their position. So the rich get richer, coming off of a Heisman season and number 1 offense in college football. I don't think there's been a time I've seen numerous national analysts mention it in recruiting, but that someone has signed the number 1 quarterback, running back, and receiver. And there's a pretty good chance, even though we're a year out from rankings being finalized for these kids, they all got senior seasons ahead of them, but they are all so elite that it won't be surprising at all if they all finish at number 1. So that's probably the biggest news. Devin Harper, one of LSU's line commits, made a big jump into the top 100. they've got another top 100 commit in Jabari Antoine. So for good reason, they stick around at number one and trending ahead of teams like Ohio State and Georgia and Clemson. So they've kind of broken through that wall of that had typically been those teams in Alabama, and now they go from a number 5 class this past cycle to sitting at number one.
Shay, this is just out of pure curiosity. How many times throughout the cycle do y'all update the rankings?
So, it's a good question. Like a wholesale update to the entire thing, there'll be about 4 times. There'll be one right out or now, about 3 months after seasons have ended, and then All-American Bowls. They'll have this update, but with juniors, I should say. Then they'll have one in the summer months after they see guys at summer camp. Then again, about midway through, the season, and then right now. So I'd say 4 big updates. So a lot of time for movement and rankings between getting seen in games and then getting seen playing basketball, running track, 7-on-7 camps, any other way you can kind of gather intel on a prospect.
Good to know. I've always kind of wondered that. I was like, well, while we got him here, let's figure that out. And we're talking about it. Shay, since the last time we had you on the show, LSU hands out an offer to 2025 defensive lineman out of Texas, Chase Sims. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, Brad Davis has been pretty active here Brad Davis. I'm thinking of Bo Davis, obviously. I've been saying Brad Davis's name a lot recently with how well LSU's recruited the O-line. But Bo Davis, the former O-lineman, is now back in Baton Rouge, and obviously what took over the D-line was it? Only been about a month, a little more than a month since those guys have been on staff, and all of February was a dead period. So we only got a few weeks of coaches out on the road, and in that time, Davis was pretty active in the Southeast, but largely in Texas and dropping into different places in Louisiana. And I think what you hope is that his time at Texas immediately kind of parlays into recruiting the same guys and picking up where he left off. I think LSU saw that with a guy like Jamar Cain, right? Coming from Oklahoma, you're recruiting the same level of guys, and you can kind of just say, hey, look, even though I'm at a new school, I'm staying on the same guys I was recruiting previously, just from Texas to LSU. So guys like Chase Sims have popped up. I mean, he is a 6'3", 300-pounder. They need defensive tackles, obviously. But Bo Davis reached out, talked about how he'd watched his film, wanted him to come in. He's gotten some Houston, SMU offers, Texas Tech, but A&M was a big one for him. So I think a lot of recruiting fans are eager to see, after Bo Davis offering him, and I think there's about 5 or 6 total in Texas, how many guys do they go in there and pluck? Because LSU's been on kind of a run here in the Dallas and Houston areas.
All right, Shane, of course, as we kind of said that off the top, of course, Shay Dixon, our guest, on 3 the Bengal Tiger, on Twitter at Shay Dixon. Spring practice opens a week from today. And then, of course, that's going to kickstart the recruiting back up. Kind of take us through the calendar a little bit and what that might look like.
Yes. So they start March 5th is it like a week from today?
Today.
The following weekend, March 8th, is already lining up to be one of their biggest visit weekends they'll have this spring. And they already had one junior day. This will be a bit bigger than that one. And Brian Kelly and the staff have sort of shown an affinity for really liking to get guys in for practices. And now that the spring practices are beginning and the dead period's about to end, they've lined up a list. I mean, we put at least a preview of the list up on the Bengal Tiger earlier today. And there's more than 25 guys who are coming in from all over the country, most of which that have offers, 4- and 5-star prospects, going all the way into the 2026 class with a number of national kids, including Diabell, who's one of the better quarterbacks out there, the number 2 quarterback right now in the On3 industry rankings. So it's about to heat back up in a hurry, not that it's not already, given the month of January that they had, both closing out that 2023 class, the kids who are about to be on the team now, many of them which are early enrollees, by getting Don McKinley or then kind of getting the future rolling with Harlan Berry and Bryce Underwood both in January. So February's dead period is almost over. Recruiting is about to be active again.
And Shay Dixon, he'll have you covered with all of it over there at On3 the Bengal Tiger. Y'all get over there and subscribe if you have not already. And, of course, follow him on Twitter, and you can listen to him right here on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock on AFR. Normally with Matt, but today with me. Shay, we appreciate the time as always, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I think we kept the train on the tracks here.
I think so.
You take it from here.
I will carry it the rest of the way home, Shay. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.